in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Cindy.
All right, the second item is request for revision to our workplace conduct policy 400.4. This has to do with the section regarding compliance regarding open meeting discussions. This policy was previously effective in October of 2017, and the new language shall read, for the county commissioners, Idaho Code 74-201, people of the state of Idaho in creating instruments of government that serve them do not yield to their sovereignty to the nation so created. Therefore, the legislature finds and declares that it is the policy of this state that the formation of public policy is public business and shall not be conducted in secret. The BOCC has adopted the following policy to minimize the risk of secret deliberation occurring in an agenda-setting process to maintain the sovereignty of the people of Bonner County as it relates to public business. The BOCC shall formulate agenda items in public meeting, to the maximum extent possible to increase transparency, i.e. commissioners jointly researching, interacting, or discussing a potential specific business matter. In furtherance of this policy, the BOCC shall continually agendaize agenda-setting items for the discussion and decision in regular business meetings or in an open special meeting when necessary. Appointed department heads and liaison procedure. BOCC reporting: department heads shall report to the full BOCC and shall not discuss issues that are or may be pending before the BOCC with more than one commissioner, except in a duly noticed public meeting. Bureau meetings are defined as having the same or similar discussion with more than one county commissioner. Contemporary meetings are defined as existing or occurring in the same period of time. Both of these meetings shall be prohibited. The responsibility and accountability, each department head must execute a written agreement. And the liaison transparency policy, each commissioner shall provide reporting department head liaison update at each weekly open business meeting for activities relating to all of the said commission liaisons. This policy has been reviewed by legal.
Ms. Binker, yesterday we had a meeting in regards to Department of Transportation, and I brought up some concerns about due process. And at that meeting, I'm very certain that what I heard was that traditionally that HR conducts a workshop before bringing something before the board in an open meeting. I was just wondering, did I miss the workshop for this?
No, there was not a workshop for this.
I would entertain a motion to do that.
So we already had, because I worked on this in the spirit of transparency and reducing the problem of treating it as a single commissioner is in charge. We are a board of 3. And so as people select, I'm going to speak to a commissioner, the community needs to know what those discussions are if they are something that could be discussed in public. And so do the other commissioners. And the way in which that gets presented is during this meeting in the open public setting to tell the public what we're working on and to also tell the other commissioners what's going on, because we shouldn't be blindsided. A single commissioner shouldn't have a silo of information that the other commissioners don't have. But in order to do that legally, it has to be done transparently. And so this was already a policy in place. It was just something that was updated. So it didn't require a workshop. When I looked at this, when I wrote the beginning, I wanted to focus on the sovereignty of the people. As people of Bonner County, we don't give that up for local government. And in order to maintain that, we are supposed to, as county government, err in favor of open public meetings and dialogue. And that's what the purpose of this was to ensure that we are meeting the requirement of encouraging the people to participate in local government. And that will help remove the problem that can exist on a board of one person rising to the top versus people being treated as it is a board. You have equal say in these decisions and the community is aware. That was the purpose. And that is in line with the rule. A workshop isn't going to change the sovereignty of the people. And I will be transparent that it's part of the shifting that is occurring in this building now, where people are choosing, I want to talk to this person only, and favoring versus we have a business to run and it's not a personal business, it is for the public. And in order to do that, we need to be transparent in all the ways that we can. There are ways that we can't be transparent, but we lean a little bit, in my opinion, too much on the let's go into individual people being in charge. I'm not the boss of an elected official. I cannot tell the sheriff, you have to come and have a meeting with me. It is right for us to have a dialogue in this setting that we're participating in. So that was the goal of this update.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding something.
I'll help you with
pardon me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to revisit this after next week's commissioner training down in Boise, because there's some state statutes that are involved in all this that may become of interest to both of you that you will learn about. And I don't think there's a person in this room that would be comfortable with the Daily Bee putting out to the public the conversation you had with your boss. Are y'all good with that?
That's not the same, like the liaison discussion.
I'm entertaining the motion.
Okay, but if we
revisit this, and we'll have a discussion in executive session to discuss the statutes, things relative to what you've got proposed here in your revision, that there are some, might be some little glitches in.
So this went through
let's get our
legal.
training done, and then we'll move on from there.
This went through legal. And so that covers the concern about whether or not it's in line with the laws that govern. And the law isn't going to change. And I would ask this isn't
Well, I'll bring
asking
this
and
meeting to a point of order. That's the motion that I will entertain.
so that is not, no one is asking
You
for the,
understand point of order, Commissioner Williams?
Oh,
Commissioner Bradshaw, I'm going to be respectful of you regardless of what you do,
Thank
but
you very
I'm going
much.
to tell you that the issue is not asking for HR information to come out. It is when a department head, for example, says, we're going to need a new snow blower, and that might impact the agenda or
And
our
review
budget,
the agenda.
our budget.
That's already being done.
So what will happen then is when
Okay,
that
point of order.
information,
Move on. Do you have a motion one way or another? Either one of you.
Chairman Bradshaw, I'm not prepared to make a motion, and this isn't open for public comment yet.
Okay.
But Chairman Bradshaw, I'm not prepared, but I guess I have a understanding. I guess I'd like to ask legal. Because as I'm hearing Commissioner Williams, she's saying that, please correct me if my misunderstanding is different, but that we can't tell electeds what to do, other electeds what to do. Yet before me, I have a policy that says each commissioner shall. Now, maybe I don't understand the meaning of the word shall. So that'd be, could you help illuminate that, please?
Well, this is a policy that would only impact you guys, the commissioners. So if you guys agreed to it, all three of you guys agreed to bind yourselves, then you would, it's okay to use a shall to bind yourselves. If you said, Daryl shall show up here and tell you how things are going, then that would fall into I think that's the scenario that you were talking about. So yes, I think if you guys can adopt a policy that binds yourselves, just not other elected officials.
Well, according to this one though, here's the other rule book that I read occasionally, try to follow it. I'm trying to understand. So can this board bind future board? And are we bound by the actions of past boards? So maybe I'm not still under shall.
So you can adopt a policy that binds the board with the recognition that a future board or even this same board has the authority to then revoke it. So, for example, you guys are the policy that we have in place now, 400.4, already kind of prohibits, the language is different than what Commissioner Williams has presented, but it already prohibits these serial meetings. That's the policy that we already have in place. And so a previous board did adopt that. And so until you guys choose to either continue with it or revoke it, then yes, you would be bound by that policy. But you have the right to revoke it. So in that sense, you only follow it if you choose to, after going through the policy. As to the actual language of the proposed policy itself, I did send you guys my opinion on that. And it does go beyond the baseline requirements in the Public Meetings Act, but those are threshold for a floor, not a ceiling. And so the language that we already have in place does go beyond the baseline. For example, these serial meetings. The Public Records Act only speaks, actually, the definition of a meeting, and more than one of you guys is present, right? It has to be to the governing board. So if a department head wants to go talk to each individual elected commissioner one at a time, it might violate maybe the spirit of the Open Meetings Act, but not the letter of it. That's why we already have a policy prohibiting it. So just so you guys in the public are aware, proposal is to go above and beyond the Records Act. It doesn't. There's nothing stopping you guys from doing that. You guys can do that next week.
Thank you.
They're clear as mud, or did I?
As I said, I've got to spend more time with lawyers lately, and yes, that was clear as mud. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I make a comment. There's this thing, responsibility of each branch of power. I'm part of the executive branch. I'm on the legislature. The commissioner is why down, because you are a legislative branch, and that's why this one applies to you.
We can ask him to do something, but he don't have
He
to.
can say no.
He can't.
I'm pretty sure that Title 31, though, also clearly delineates the commissioners are an executive branch of the county.
Part of
I don't think that you guys actually.
We're actually, it's all three.
That is where they are legislative when they make ordinances. They're executive in some fashion, and they're also quasi judicial when they sit in land use files. So you guys wear a bunch of weird hats, different hats.
Which is why transparency would be good.
And complying with the Constitution is also good. So,
And we'll do all of those and ensure the sovereignty of the people that we represent.
Yes, ma'am.
we're Chairman, are we in public comment, or there's no motion on the floor, so we're still.
Yeah. So I'd entertain a motion to table this till after Boise. And then we'll discuss it with HR in executive session and save the taxpayers a lot of boring time here in the Tuesday morning business meeting. And
Does
then
this
we
qualify
will
for executive
revisit it.
session? Is this a topic that goes in executive session just because there's a disagreement, or is this the point of open public session?
So one of the reasons we can go into executive session is for the receipt of otherwise confidential information. So I've already written you guys an attorney-client privileged document explaining the legality of this policy. If you wanted to go into executive session to discuss that, that's one of the ways we can, or you can choose not to. You can have the discussion publicly too. So remember, executive session is only an option. Sometimes it's almost a necessity. Sometimes it isn't. You have to make those decisions each time you have it.
Well, I would entertain a motion that we do this policy like we do every other policy that comes before the board. And it's done before it gets right here. So
Well, I'm
we're
not going to
gonna
vote to
break
secret
tradition
this
on
away,
that.
so you'll have to look to Luke to second that, because I'm not going to.
I wasn't aware, Commissioner Williams, that this was in secret. I mean, as I look out at a number of plaid shirts, and I recognize that maybe I forgot part of the uniform of the day, that this has been an open meeting, but I appreciate that comment.
Asking for it to go into secret. That's what
So
this
I'd
motion.
entertain a motion to
That's
table
all.
this till
I
later.
don't think that's what was said. However, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to table this policy until we actually go through the traditional procedure as brought forth by Human Resources yesterday with a public workshop.
I would step down from the chair and second that. Public comment?
Kristen Dodd, for the record. My question, you mentioned that there were some statutes that the other commissioners might be learning about that would perhaps conflict with this policy. I'm curious, can you share that with us right now, what that statute is that is in conflict with this policy?
That would be a legal thing. I don't have the statute in front of me. It's on my desk in there. But next week, we go to commissioner training down in Boise. They will learn a lot of procedural things. They'll learn a lot of state laws and stuff that applies to commissioners as to what you can do, what you can't do, how you do it. And I would suggest that we do that before we actually do things like this out of the normal order that we do things like this.
Okay, and then this is going to be
We
discussed
have a
in public?
process of doing this. That process has been skipped.
Okay, but then this will be discussed in
It'll
public
be-
after
it'll come right
learning
back.
all of the things that you want to learn?
Yep.
Okay.
Steve Bowman.
Mr. Bowman?
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Couple of things. Cindy, unfortunately, I was unable to catch anything that you said because of probably the position of the mic. Same thing with everybody who's been up there so far. So is this policy revision written somewhere where we could get access to it online or get it emailed to us? Because I have no idea what was said. So that's one. Bill Wilson, you are wonderfully employing your technique learned from Lewis Marshall to lean away from the mic when you speak so that you can't be held accountable.
I'm going to sit right up here, okay? I apologize.
I'd appreciate it. It's a regular thing. So you have a habit when you get on the mic that you lean away from it. So I'd like to call your attention to that. And then the last thing I have is, it is utterly bizarre to me that this discussion would take place in executive session. I mean, you've got Chairman Bradshaw, when you were sworn in, you talked about wanting to be lawful rather than legal, and all of you have talked about transparency. So, you know, I missed some of it, but we're talking about open meetings, and to discuss that in executive session is insane. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Dave.
Every policy change that has came before the board in the last 4 years has been discussed in executive session, because that's a time when the three commissioners can actually have a conversation on an item that's going to be voted on. And so after that executive session, that policy change or policy adaptation would either be shot down or moved forward. When it's moved forward, then it is on the agenda and it is made public at that point. So transparency is 100%.
No.
And so I'm not willing to change that. If the two decide that they would like to change that process, then it will be changed.
I guess I would ask, why? Why do you feel the need to do that in secret, especially regarding open meeting policy, especially that?
Because the three of us can't have a conversation in an open meeting about things we're going to vote on later.
I could not disagree more. You should be having those conversations.
The law doesn't say I am using open meeting to have a conversation freely. It's very clear on the rules. So Idaho Code 74206 tells you executive session is for hiring, personnel issues, real property, records exempt, trade or commerce, litigation, HR, risk management for claims.
And what's the required posted time for us to have a conversation in a public workshop?
It varies.
And that did not happen. So
well,
that pretty much nullifies that, doesn't it?
I don't know. It seems to me like we're talking about personnel issues to be conducted in private and secret. That would be regarding issues with a particular personnel or a behavioral issue or disciplinary. But when you're talking about the broad policy for all employees of the county, that's a whole, I think you got to put it in context with what those words are supposed to mean in the code, in the statute.
Mr. Rosedale?
Thank you. The time you can go into executive session is when you're talking about something expressly, narrowly defined by statute. Every other instance needs to be public, a public meeting. If you then leave that narrowly defined scope of statute, you need to immediately go back to a public meeting. Executive session is not meant to talk about anything you want to talk about. It's meant to talk about that issue that's narrowly defined by statute.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosedale.
And that
Mr.
narrowly defined subject matter would include perspective policy changes and stuff like that.
All right, Mr. Rose.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, I thought I was running this meeting. I thought I was chairman.
That's what I thought.
I asked Mr. Rodell a question. Would that include policy changes that are specified and posted that we're going into executive session on?
If it deals with ongoing litigation, yes. If it doesn't, no. If it deals with ongoing personnel issues by name, yes. If it doesn't, no. If it has to follow that, and Bill Wilson has advised you, I mean, it's a very narrowly construed thing. I mean, it's not a razor sharp line. And
I got you, Dave.
all right, to Dr. Wilson
Again. All right. So again, and Mike's right. The statutes say that the executive sessions should be narrowly tailored and not be expansive. So in this case, the only realistic way that I could see this discussed in executive session would be the portion that talks about discussion of exempt records. One of those exempt records are those things that I create for you that are attorney-client privileged. So I have given you an opinion in writing. If you want to ask questions about that, or you want to have a full discussion about my opinions that I've given to you in executive session, you can choose to do that if you, after a roll call vote, if 2 out of the 3 of you guys want to do that. Again, that's your privilege to hold or waive. So if you didn't think that it was necessary to go into executive session to receive my advice or to have that discussion, we could just have it in public meeting too. So that's the decision that we'll face if you guys were to table this to a subsequent meeting. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, say I agree with Dave Berman, Clerk Rosedale, and mostly with Attorney Wilson. The matters of public business are expressly stated in the code to avoid secrecy. Again, the narrow path is where you need to be, and the rest of the business is the public's business.
For the rest of the night, to have another fit.
Attempt to shield the public from the business by making it executive session is a misuse of the executive session. And I'll go back and say further that, if Dave Berman can't hear what's going on, this meeting is null and void. If you offer an audio video version, everybody has to be able to hear and see and participate. And if he can't, you've entered into that morbid area. So I would commission the board to think very closely about what they wish to make public and which they wish to make private. And my public comment goes to that same principle, except from the staff level, my presentation of public comment refers to the public's level. And so this issue, even though it was done, and we're going to do things the way we've always done them, is why people get thrown out of office.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call the question.
Okay.
So what that does is we have a motion and a second, and it's to vote so that we can carry on. And I believe that there was a 10 o'clock meeting scheduled. We have executive session. We have a number of the executive officer of the county. I believe that there was a motion on the floor, and you stepped down from the chair to second it. I'd like to call the question to get to a vote so we can continue with the.
The motion was to table this until after Boise, then we'll discuss it and it'll get on the agenda and move forward.
Mr. Chairman, my motion was to go through the procedure as is traditional within this county to have a workshop and to bring it back in public so that we can address this in a public setting, Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir.
Do we have a second? In that case, I will step down from the chair and second that. Motion passes. All
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Need a roll call vote
I can request roll call vote at any time.
for the table? That's unusual. But you can call for it if you
My
like.
hand has not come down.
Got it, we did it.
Put it down?
No. I did at one point, but I put it back up.
Read out, we can hear you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I tried to unmute so that y'all knew that my hand had been up for a long time. That's okay. I just want to say that with the people that I have been in touch with, they've all been offended at everything going into executive session. Even though somebody says that it's always been done this way for 4 years, it's not always been done this way all the time. And I would like to see which meeting that they had a resolution to make all this stuff go into executive session in the first place. Having said that, I do agree with Dave Bowman and a few other speakers. And thank you, Bill, for sitting up and so we can hear you now. I appreciate that. And that's all I've got.
all right, thanks, Sherry. All right, motion passes, it gets tabled. Okay,
Chairman Bradshaw, may I?
nope,
say something?
it's done.
Well, no, it's not on that. It's
Okay,
on what David said.
Well,
okay, go ahead.
pardon me, Mr. Wilson, but according,
It's not a question and answer, so go ahead.
It's
I'll-
really up to the
I'll
chairman
permit
to
it.
decide if he wants to allow public comment,
Yeah,
whether or not it tracks.
allow this
perfectly.
last one.
My name is Wayne Martin, for the record. Didn't wear my name tag, sorry. With these meetings, most of the time I don't make it in, I have to Zoom. And a lot of the times, I would say the majority of the time, it is hard to hear what's being said, whether it's mic placement, number of mics, or whatever, whether it's a person at the podium or whatever. But I'm trying to confirm what Dave said is, yeah, lots of times you can't hear. And I don't know if there's a way of being able to get a hold of you folks, whomever, to say, hey, you know, speak louder or be closer to the mic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Road and Bridge.